Hello and welcome to this video. In this video, I'm going to show you how you can create this pencil looking extruded type animation in Adobe After Effects. We will start by making the basic animation and then we use camera and lights to give it a bit more depth, and alternatively we will use effects in order to wrap up this animation. This is a video from the Pixrate series, so I'm going to give a huge shout out to Pixrate for its amazing works. Also, don't forget to hit that subscribe button if you are new to this channel, and also leaving out a like and a comment helps me out a lot to beat the YouTube algorithm. Now, let's begin. Alright, so here we are inside of Adobe After Effects, and now let's begin. So I'm going to click on New Composition to set up a composition, and I'm going to call it Base. And the width and height, I'm going to set it on 2000. The frame rate is set on 24 frames per second. And one important thing that we need to do is that we need to make sure that we are setting our render into Cinema 4D for this video. And now let's hit OK. Alright, so what I'm going to do on the first step is that I'm going to create a new background. I'm going to call it background, and the color is fine. And now let's create our text. So I'm gonna write the word extrude. So this is good. And now let's align it to the middle. And I'm gonna duplicate this text one more time. And this time I'm gonna change its font to something lighter. So light seems to be fine. So that's good. And let's move it here. So I'm gonna shift from this font to this font. So let's now create shapes from these two texts. And then what I'm going to do is that I'm going to delete these two texts because we don't need them. And I'm going to set a keyframe on path property by using the crazy shapes tool. And then I'm going to go on 1 second. And then I'm going to set another path keys on the extrude outlines. And then I'm going to paste them in here. We don't need it. Let's just delete it. So this is the main text, and now let's just bring it back to its original position. And now let's also set the easings on 85%. So we will have a text like this. That is good. And now what I'm going to do is that I'm gonna add a camera. Now the focal length is set on 10,000, which means that our camera is pretty zoomed, so I'm gonna hit OK. And now I'm gonna turn this layer into 3D. Also, let's create a new null object that controls the camera. So I'm gonna parent the camera to null. And then what I'm going to do is that I'm gonna use the orientation to sort of fix our text. So around here seems to be fine. Alright, now what we need to do on the next step, I'm gonna hold Control to close the content panel, and then I'm gonna open the geometry option. I'm gonna set the extrusion on 100. About here seems to be fine. And then I'm gonna set a keyframe. I'm gonna go towards 1 second, and then I'm gonna increase the extrusion all the way to a high number. Well, 1000 seems to be at the end, so I'm going to bring it back to its original position now. And one thing that is important in here, we need to set the easings the same as the path animation. So I'm going to go towards keyframe velocity again. I'm going to set it on 85% again. So this will be our animation. Well, right now we cannot see anything because it's all yellow. So what I'm going to do is that I'm going to change the text color to a black color. And then what I'm going to do is that I'm going to go towards content with everything selected. I'm going to hit add, and inside I'm going to add a color. And then I'm going to change this color to white. Alright, so one thing that we have in here is that the letter is getting extruded backward. So to fix that problem, we can press S to reveal the scale, and we can set the Z value on -100. So now let's watch. Well, that is good, but the text is getting out of the border, so I'm gonna fix that. Okay, that's great. Now what I'm going to do is that I'm gonna use the motion tools to extract the letters, and then what I'm going to do is that I'm gonna press U to reveal all of the keyframes, and then I'm gonna offset them by 2 frames. So I'm gonna use the page down option twice to move 2 frames forward, and then I'm gonna offset the keyframes like this. Alright, now let's press N to cut our time indicator. Okay, that is nice. Now let's close these panels, and now what I'm going to do on the next step is that I'm going to use viewpoint lights in order to stylize our extrusion, and then we can use some effects to achieve what we want. So what I'm going to do is that I'm going to create a new light, and the type is set on point. I'm going to change its color to a red color. The intensity is set on 300, and also it casts shadows, and then I'm gonna hit OK. So what I'm going to do on the first step is that I'm gonna push the light in a way that it only covers the extrude letter. So around here seems to be fine. So let's just bring it back to here so we can work with it better. So that seems good. And then what I'm going to do is that I'm going to duplicate this layer, and then I'm going to change its color to a green color, and I'm going to move it in here. So let's just solo this light. So I'm just gonna make it in a way that only covers a portion of the letters. So that seems to be fine. And then what I'm going to do is that I'm going to duplicate the point light one more time, and let's solo it, and this time I'm gonna make it reveal everything. So that's good. And then I'm gonna duplicate the point light 2 one more time. Let's solo it, and this time I'm gonna make the light casts from here. So we have something like this so far. And lastly, I'm just gonna duplicate the point light 4. I'm gonna change its color to a white color, and the reason is that I'm gonna push it above. It only covers the darker parts, so we have something like this at the end. All right, that seems good. Now the light doesn't cast very well, so I'm just gonna adjust that a bit. And that is good. So here's the base animation that we have in here, which is quite nice. And now what I'm going to do is that I'm going to create a new composition. I'm just going to call it the stroke, and let's bring the base in here. So on the first step, what we need to do is that we need to remove the background color. So to do that, I'm going to add a color key effect. And now what I'm going to do is that I'm going to use the eyedropper tool to remove the background. And now what we can do is that we can add a fill effect. Now what I'm going to do is that I'm going to right click, and in layer styles I'm going to add a stroke. Now the stroke, I'm going to increase its size to a number such as like 30. that should be fine. And then we need to remove the fill inside of this effect. So to do that, what I'm going to do is that I'm gonna go towards the blending option, advanced blending, and then we're gonna turn off the opacity. Well, 13 seems to be much, so let's just go on 12. All right, that seems good. Now, what I'm going to do on the next step is that I'm gonna add a new composition, and this time I'm gonna call it transparent. So basically, I'm gonna go towards the base, and then I'm gonna copy everything, and we're just gonna decrease the opacity to 40%. So we'll have a transparent animation like this. All right, so this is the basic animation. Now it is time to stylize it and make our final animation. So to do that, what I'm going to do is that I'm gonna create a new composition, and then I'm gonna call it main. And now let's start with making a background. So the background, I'm gonna set it on a white background. And in asset panel, I have grid. I'm gonna bring it back. Okay. And then what I'm going to do is that I'm gonna stylize it a bit. So I'm gonna add the roughen edges effect. Now we cannot see anything, so let's just decrease it to a number such as 0.20. That seems good. And now let's also increase the scale. We can increase it. Okay, that seems good. And now we can generate this effect by holding Alt and clicking on evolution. And then what I'm going to do is that I'm gonna write the posterize time by 6. So this effect will generate every 4 frames. And then what I'm going to do is that I'm gonna hit enter, and then I'm gonna add a random expression so it generates randomly. All right, that's great. All right, so I think it's better to decrease the scale. So we can decrease it. Yes, I think 20, that will be that is way better. And now what I'm going to do is that I can stylize it even further by adding a new solid layer. I'm gonna call it fractal. And then I'm gonna add the fractal noise effect. And this time I'm just gonna use the transform panel. I'm gonna increase the scale to a number such as like 300 seems fine. And then what we can do is that we can use the track matte to track matte it to the grid. So in this way we have more stylized grid. Now that is good. And now what I'm going to do is that I'm gonna add the transparent into this grid. So basically what we need to do is that we need to remove the background first. So to do that, I'm gonna add the find edges, and then we can use the Luma key effect to remove the white background. So we need to set the key type on key output brighter, and let's increase it. So I think around here should be fine. And now we can add a fill effect. So we are going to leave the fill for now to a red color, that's fine. And then we can even stylize it further by duplicating the fractal effect. And then we can remove the track matte, and then we can use the pick whip to set the matte on fractal for the transparent. And now what we can do to even push this animation further, we can use the roughen edges effect from the grid, and then we can paste it to the extrude. So now what we can do on the next step, I'm gonna duplicate this transparent one more time, and this time I'm just gonna change its color. So we can just, so now if I change the color, you can see that we have some bluish color in here. And now what I'm going to do on the next step is that I'm gonna bring the base into our composition, and I'm gonna rename it to fill. So this will be basically our fill effect. So I'm gonna add the fine edges again, but this time I'm gonna add a black and white effect, and we can increase the reds to 300, yellows we can increase it to like 150, same as the greens. And since we, as you saw, we set our lighting in that way, so this is basically what I'm trying to do, removing the unnecessary elements. So we can barely see anything. So to fix that problem, I'm going to change the mode to multiply. So this will be, where's multiply? All right, that's good. Now also we need to remove the background, so I'm going to add the luma key effect again. I'm going to key out the brighter parts, and then I'm going to add the fill effect. So if I don't do the luma key, as you see, when I add the fill effect, it's not going to remove it. So we can change the color now to a blue color or purple. That is up to you. Great. So now on the next step, I'm going to bring the stroke. So this is basically our stroke. We can use a fill color to colorize it however we want. So I'm just going to leave it on a green color. That's fine. But let's also change the stroke mode to multiply as well. Now what I'm going to do is that I'm going to add the base layer one more time. And this time I'm going to call it the outline. Now, as usual, I'm gonna add the fine edges effect, and then let's just add a luma key, and we're gonna remove the brighter parts again. So this will remove the background. And now let's add a fill effect. By adding a fill effect, now we can colorize this portion. So I'm just gonna, okay. So let's just colorize it like this. And then I'm gonna add a simple choker effect, and this will just expand the borders, and we can duplicate this effect a couple of times, and then we can just change values to make the outline. So what I'm going to do right now is that I'm gonna add some texture to this design. So I'm gonna bring the paper texture first, and I'm gonna set its mode on overlay, and we can use the track matte to track matte it to fill. Okay, this will give a better effect, so those wavy lines, and we can duplicate it and we can use it for the stroke as well. So now we have some, as you see, if I zoom, some pencil texture effect, which is quite nice. So now what we can do is that we can use the texture displacement, and I'm going to set this mode on darken. Okay, and now we can add the displacement map effect, and we can use the texture displacement to finalize our textures. So I'm gonna copy this displacement map, I'm gonna paste it for other layers as well. All right, that's nice. And finally, on the last step, I'm gonna bring the paper texture too, and I'm gonna set its mode on the screen. So now we will have this animation. We can now work on colors. So let's just select the outlines. I'm gonna increase it to a blackish, and then I'm gonna use the stroke. Make sure the stroke is ruled, and all right, this seems good. The transparent, I'm gonna change it to a bluish color, and the last transparency to a red one. Alright, so here's the final animation that we have in here, and I hope you have enjoyed it. If you have enjoyed this video, don't forget to leave out a like and subscribe to the channel, as it would help me out a lot. Thank you for watching this video. Goodbye.